You know their names. Zeus, the king, who rules from a golden throne with a thunderbolt in his hand. Hades, the grim lord of the underworld. Poseidon, the earth-shaker, master of the seas. You've heard the tales of the Olympians, of their loves, their wars, their jealousies. You believe you know the story of Greek mythology. But what if I told you that the gods you know are merely the children of a forgotten dynasty? That they are the third generation of rulers who seized power in a bloody rebellion? What if I told you that before the polished marble halls of Olympus, there were powers far older, far more primal, and infinitely more terrifying? These are not the gods you were taught about in school. These are the secret rulers of the cosmos, the primordial forces and the elder titans whose very existence made the Olympians tremble. This is the story of the powers even Zeus was afraid to challenge. This is the mythology you don't know.
In the beginning, there was no beginning. There was no sky, no sea, no earth. There was only chaos. Do not mistake this for a mere state of disorder. Chaos was not a squabbling of gods or a war of men. It was the thing before things, a yawning, formless, infinite void. It was not evil. It was not good. It simply was. It was a conscious abyss, a thinking nothingness from which all reality would eventually emerge. From this primeval emptiness, the first conscious entities manifested, not through birth, but through sheer will and cosmic necessity. They were not gods as later generations would understand them. They were the universe's first thoughts, given form. First came Gaia, the earth. And you must understand, she was not a goddess of the earth. She was the earth. Every mountain peak was her bone, every valley her muscle, every deep ocean trench a fold in her skin. Her consciousness permeated every grain of soil, every crystal formation deep beneath the surface. She was vast, patient, and terrifyingly fertile. And from her own being, without a mate, she willed another into existence, Uranus, the sky. He arched over her a great dome of stars and night, her equal in size and grandeur. He was both her son and her consort, and their union, the constant embrace of earth and sky, would set the stage for creation. But Gaia was not alone in this first breath of creation. Simultaneously, Tartarus took form. This was not the mere prison for monsters it would later become. Tartarus was a conscious entity, the personification of the great pit itself, a cosmic prison located beneath even the foundations of the earth. A bronze anvil dropped from the sky would fall for 9 days and nights before reaching its bottom. His awareness extended throughout the shadowy depths that would later serve as the ultimate punishment for those who defied cosmic order. And from the void, another came, cloaked in a shadow so profound it made Tartarus seem bright. Nyx, the night. Her form was that of a woman of incomparable beauty, draped in star-spangled robes, but her power was so immense, so ancient, that it was said even Zeus, in his future reign, would never dare to cross her. He who commanded the thunder feared the dark. These were the Primordials, not rulers, but the very rules of existence. Earth, sky, abyss, and night. The stage was set, but the players had not yet arrived.
From the endless union of Gaia and Uranus, the first generation of true gods was born, the Titans. They were the first dynasty to rule the cosmos. But these were not the brutish figures later myths would portray. They were cosmic principles, their power far more abstract and absolute than the Olympians who would follow. Take Oceanus and his consort Tethys. They were not gods of the sea like Poseidon, who would later command waves with his trident. Oceanus was the great world-encircling river, the source of all fresh water, all rivers, all clouds. His body was the boundary of the known world. He did not rule the waters, he was the waters. His power was not an act of will, but an act of being. Consider Hyperion and Theia, the original gods of light. Before Apollo ever drove his sun chariot, Hyperion was the sun's light. He didn't carry it, he embodied it. His children were Helios, the sun, Selene, the moon, and Eos, the dawn. These were not refined anthropomorphic deities. They were raw celestial phenomena. Helios was the heat that could scorch the earth. Selene, the maddening light of the deep night. Their power was not about art or poetry. It was about the fundamental forces that govern day and night. Then there was Iapetus, the titan of craftsmanship and mortality, whose sons Prometheus and Atlas would shape the fate of mankind. And Themis, who was not a goddess of justice, but the embodiment of divine law itself. The natural order, the cycles, the unspoken rules that even gods must obey. The power of these elder titans was different. The Olympians would later claim dominion over concepts like love, war, and wisdom, human concepts. But the Titans were the concepts. They were the universe's operating system, while the Olympians were merely the applications running on it. They were less like kings and more like forces of nature. And it was this raw, untamable power that made them so terrifying.
To truly understand this difference, let us compare the old power with the new. Hyperion, the Titan Lord of Light, versus Apollo, the Olympian god of the sun. The difference is not one of degree, but of kind. Hyperion did not manage the sun. He was the sun, a raw, untamed celestial furnace. His power was the very act of burning, the unrestrained nuclear fusion that gives life and can just as easily take it away. He was a cosmic engine, an elemental force without agenda, or personality. Apollo, on the other hand, is a custodian. He drives the sun chariot. He is a god of culture, of reason, of prophecy and music. He brings the sun's light to the world as a service, a duty. He represents the civilizing of that raw power. His light is controlled, predictable, harnessed for the benefit of civilization. He is a god made in man's image, skilled, intelligent, emotional. Hyperion was a power that existed before man and cared nothing for it. It is the difference between being the storm and commanding the lightning. Oceanus was the endless, unknowable depths, while Poseidon is the master of waves, a king who rules his territory. Themis was the law of the universe, while Athena would become the goddess of courtroom strategy. The Titans were the forces that made the world. The Olympians were the gods who learned to repeat. This shift from raw elemental power to personified, human-like deities is the secret story of mythology. It is the story of humanity taming the chaos of the natural world, even in its gods. But some powers could never be tamed. Before we continue our descent into the age of monsters and uncover the beings that even the Titans feared, take a moment. If you're finding this journey into the lost chapters of mythology as fascinating as we do, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss the secrets we unearth next. But Gaia's children were not limited to the Titans. She bore other, stranger offspring, beings whose very existence was a threat to cosmic order. First came the Cyclopses, Brontes, the Thunderer, Steropes, the Lightning Maker, and Arges, the Bright One. Do not think of them as simple giants. They were the living embodiment of the storm's fury. Later myths would demote them to mere blacksmiths, forging weapons for the gods. But the truth is far grander. They did not just craft the thunderbolt, they were the thunderbolt. They were raw, destructive power. And their father, Uranus, was so disgusted and terrified by their might that he cast them back into Gaia's womb, deep into the abyss of Tartarus. The implication is staggering. The signature weapon of Zeus, the symbol of his ultimate power, was a borrowed force, power so primal that the first king of the universe couldn't bear to look at it. And then came the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed ones, Kotos, Briareos, and Gyges. These were beings of such overwhelming might that they defy description. Each possessed 50 heads and 100 arms. They were walking engines of destruction, capable of hurling mountains as easily as a man might throw a stone. Their power was not strategic or elegant. It was absolute chaotic force. And, like the Cyclopes, they were feared. Uranus took one look at these children and thrust them back into the earth. Later, his son Cronus would free them to overthrow him, only to become terrified himself and imprison them once more. The two great kings of the Titan era, rulers of the cosmos, were so profoundly afraid of their own kin that their only solution was to bury them. This reveals the great secret of the Titan dynasty. It was a reign built on fear. Fear of their own children, fear of prophecy, and fear of powers they could not control. So why have these elder gods been forgotten? Why does history begin with Zeus? Because history, even mythological history, is written by the victors. After the Great War, the Titanomachy, the Olympians established a new order, and with it, a new narrative. The poets and priests of the New Age, from Homer to Hesiod, crafted stories that favored their patrons. The elder gods were rebranded. The raw cosmic forces of the Titans were recast as brutish, unintelligent tyrants who deserved to be overthrown. The Primordials were pushed back into the misty realm of creation myths, too abstract and terrifying for daily worship. The Olympians, by contrast, were made relatable. They had passions, flaws, families. They looked and acted like humans, only grander. They represented a universe that was, if not benevolent, at least comprehensible. This was more than a religious shift, it was a psychological one. The Olympians represent the triumph of civilization over chaos, of order over the untamed wilderness of nature. Worshipping Zeus, a god of law and society, is far more comforting than trying to appease Tartarus, the conscious abyss. Praying to Athena for wisdom in battle is more practical than contemplating the abstract divine law of Themis. The humanization of the gods was a way of taming the universe itself, of placing humanity at the center of the story. The forgotten gods didn't just lose a war, they lost their place in a world that was becoming smaller, more rational, and more focused on the affairs of mortals. They were too big, too strange, too alien for the new world being built. So the next time you hear the name Zeus, remember the powers he overthrew. Remember chaos, the thinking void. Remember Gaia, who was the world itself. Remember Nyx, whom the Thunderer himself feared. Remember Hyperion, who was the sun, and the 100-handed ones, whose might was so great their own father could not bear to look upon them. The Olympians may have won the throne, but they rule a tamer, smaller universe than the one that came before. They are the keepers of a cosmic order built on the graves of their elders. The forgotten gods are still there, in the echoes of the cosmos, in the deep trenches of the sea, in the impenetrable darkness of night, in the core of the earth, and in the heart of distant stars. But what do you think? Which of these forgotten gods do you find the most terrible? Do you believe, as the ancient storytellers did, that history is always written by the victors? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective is part of this continuing story. It begs the question, is history truly always written by the victors, even when the victors are gods? Or are some truths so immense they can only be buried, never truly erased.